Uh, yes. Yes, they will. Happy New Year from Uncle Lou to you and yours. I hope you and your family had a fun, enjoyable, and safe holiday season and New Year's Eve. And I hope you have an amazing 2024. I hope this year is the best year yet. I hope it's better than 2023 for you, no matter how good 2023 might have been. Happy New Year to everyone. And here's to a great 2024 right here on LouTube. Got several games coming up today. Of course, the two playoff games being the big ones, but we've got a couple of other games as well featuring a couple of SEC teams. Up first, we've got Tennessee and Iowa. Well, actually, I think that's second. LSU and Wisconsin, I believe, comes on at noon. Tennessee and Iowa at 1. Well, let's start with LSU Wisconsin. LSU had a disappointing year based on preseason expectations and the sort of surprise success that Brian Kelly had last year, his first year in Baton Rouge. LSU obviously was not a terrible team overall. They had a Heisman winning quarterback in Jaden Daniels. More on him in a second. He has opted out. He's not playing in this game. And he had one of the best offenses in college football. Obviously, the defense let him down big time. A lot of comparisons to about this year's LSU team to pretty much every Lincoln Riley team of all time. And while I get the comparisons, and it's a fair and accurate comparison, I don't think we can make the assumption that this is going to be what LSU is going forward the same way you're kind of safe making that assumption about Lincoln Riley and right now Southern Cal. I mean, we've got 7, 8 years worth of data on Lincoln Riley having the exact same team year after year after year, right? Amazing offense, just terrible defense. Right now, this is a one-off deal for LSU, so we'll see what happens going forward if they're able to fix things on that side of the ball. We'll talk more about that in the offseason in terms of what they did in recruiting, coaching changes, or not making coaching changes, or whatever. But anyway, they're still a pretty good team at 9-3, and they're playing a Wisconsin team that, while they did manage to make a bowl game under first-year head coach Luke Fickell, to me anyway, still had a pretty disappointing season. I thought they could have and probably should have won the Big Ten West. Obviously, Iowa did that again. They won the Big Ten West last year, and they've now won it again. And Iowa is why are we talking about Iowa, not Iowa? Forget Iowa. Iowa's the opposite of LSU. Good defense, no offense. Let's get back to Wisconsin. I do like Luke Fickell, and I do like the direction that I think he will take Wisconsin. Now, like the SEC, the Big Ten is expanding and doing away with divisions, and schedules are about to be flipped on their head. And, in a given year, a team could be 11-1 or they could be 8-4 based solely on how the schedule falls, who they play, when they play them, whether they play them home and away, and things like that. But I guess the bottom line for me with Wisconsin is I do think Luke Fickell there is an upgrade over what they've had in the past, and I do think Wisconsin will become a better team than what they have been over the last 2, 3, 4 years. Whether their record will reflect that from year to year is going to depend a lot on the scheduling. But with this game in particular, I would expect LSU to win. Yes, Jaden Daniels is sitting out, but let's not forget their backup quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, has had some success. He's got some experience. He has played. He has played in meaningful games. He played the entire second half of last year's SEC championship game, and while LSU lost that game, Garrett Nussmeier looked absolutely amazing against that Georgia defense last year in the second half. Now, the game was already over when he came in. Georgia was up something like 35-3 at halftime over LSU or whatever. I don't remember the exact score, but it was something like that. But there's reasons to be excited about Garrett Nussmeier and what he can do as quarterback with that LSU offense both today and going forward. Now, he doesn't give you what Jaden Daniels gives you from the waist down in terms of his ability to run around, scramble, 50, 60-yard touchdown runs. You're not going to get that from him. But he can make every throw in the book. He's got an NFL arm. And, importantly for LSU and Nussmeier, LSU's top 2 receivers, both expected to be drafted very high in the NFL draft, are playing in this game, led, of course, by Malik Neighbors. LSU, I think, is a little bit over a touchdown favorite in this game. I think they're 8 or 9 point favorite. I think LSU wins this game easily. Their defense is not great, but Wisconsin offensively is not great either. You have to remember, these Big Ten West teams are borderline horrendous outside of Iowa. And Iowa's got no offense at all, yet they still keep winning that thing because everybody else over there is basically a 500 or worse team. It's just been a bad couple of years for the Big Ten West. And getting back to the point I made at the beginning, even though LSU's season was disappointing this year, you look at the teams they lost to, none of them look like Wisconsin. They lost, who did LSU lose to? They lost to Florida State early in the year. They lost to Alabama, and they lost to, I believe, Ole Miss was their third loss. Or anyway, they lost to 3 top 15 teams. They lost to some good teams. All the teams they lost to are way better than Wisconsin. It is going to hurt LSU, obviously, not to have Jaden Daniels, but I think they've got enough there to handle Wisconsin. I'll take LSU in that one. Tennessee and Iowa, an interesting game for a couple of different reasons. Iowa's got one of the best defenses in the country, at least statistically speaking. Again, their defensive stats are padded a little bit by the fact that they play a bunch of bad Big Ten West teams. You look at their game earlier in the season against Penn State. Now, I don't think anybody thinks that Penn State has some sort of elite dynamic, offense. They've got a good offense with talented pieces and a good running game, but it's not one of these high-flying, score a bunch of points offenses, right? I think they got into the 30s against Iowa and handled them easily. Now, I'm not trying to compare Tennessee and Penn State. These are two totally different teams. But if you look at some of the upper echelon teams that Iowa has played, they have managed to score on Iowa. And I think Tennessee will score on Iowa as well. Nico, I'm about to leave you, is playing in this game. Joe Milton has opted out. I can't help but feel like he was kind of pushed out the door by Tennessee. Joe Milton does not have an NFL future. He's 25, 26 years old, and the NFL doesn't care that he can throw the ball 100 yards. He's got no accuracy. He struggles even on the deep. He throws the ball 80 yards. That's great, but not when the receiver is only 60 yards downfield. Just overthrow Joe. It makes sense for Tennessee. If I was a Tennessee fan, and I think I said this when this announcement was made a couple of weeks ago, if I'm a Tennessee fan, it's not that I don't, I'm not mad at Joe Milton, I guess, or hate him or whatever, but I would be ready to turn the page. And Nico's a true freshman, and while he has played in a handful of games this year, he really has not played any meaningful time in any meaningful game at all. And he's obviously the starter next year at quarterback, just based solely off of how highly he was recruited. There's just no way, barring injury, anyone other than Nico is going to be Tennessee's starting quarterback in 2024. So if I'm a Tennessee fan, I say put him in today. I'm all for this move. Even if it were to cost us the game, I would rather Nico get a full game's worth of experience against a really good defense today at the end of 2023 and use that as valuable experience going into the offseason, spring practice, summer and fall camp, and then next year already having this game's worth of experience under his belt. Is he going to come out and play perfect today? No, probably not. He's going to make some plays, I think, that remind you why he was so highly rated and recruited by everybody coast to coast. And he's probably going to make some plays that make you go, well, he's a true freshman. He's probably going to make some mistakes. He may throw an interception or two. He may make a wrong read. Whatever. The typical freshman mistakes that don't have anything to do with his talent or ability, but everything to do with his lack of experience at the college level. So I think it's a huge benefit for Tennessee going forward that he is playing in this game. Now, if Tennessee comes out and wins 45-10, does that mean Tennessee is then on to something for next year in terms of winning, the SEC? No, it doesn't. Obviously, it doesn't mean that. Tennessee fans fell for that last year. This is a similar situation to last year's bowl season for Tennessee. Hendon Hooker got hurt, didn't opt out. He got hurt, couldn't play in the bowl game. Joe Milton started, last year's backup, looked great in I believe it was the Orange Bowl against a pretty good Clemson defense. And then this year, it was sort of back to the Joe Milton that we kind of thought we would see, just nothing spectacular, even though he looked really, really good in that bowl game. So, Nico could come out and complete 70% of his passes for, 270 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception, which would be pretty good. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's on his way to a Heisman Trophy and 3 national titles in a row at Tennessee. Obviously, you want him to play well, and I think like I said, I think he will play well at times. And then at times, I think, he'll also remind you that he's a true freshman. Iowa offensively against Tennessee defensively. Tennessee's not a great defense. They're borderline good. They're really good against the run at times this year. Iowa offensively doesn't even exist. They have no offense. They're the worst offense in not just the Power 5, but almost all of FBS. Any statistical offensive category you want to look at is just absolutely horrendous. They win games with defense and special teams. The under on the Iowa games has hit like almost every single week this season. Tennessee is favored in this game by under a touchdown. I like Tennessee to win the game handily. 2-3 scores. I don't think this game will be particularly close. I think Tennessee at the skill positions will be able to win enough matchups against Iowa defensively if they can keep Nico clean in the pocket. That's my only concern. Nico being a true freshman, does he get happy feet? Does he get nervous? Does he fold up in the pocket? Does he get rushed and make bad decisions because of the Iowa pass rush? That's my concern for Tennessee heading into this game. But like I said, I think Nico and that Tennessee offense make enough plays to win this game by a couple of scores. Then you got a playoff game, Alabama and Michigan. I've made a 20-minute video about that game already, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today, but I think Alabama wins. To my surprise, they are still an underdog in this game. When this matchup was announced, they were about a 1.5-point underdog to Michigan. It went down as low as half a point. It's been up as high as 2.5 points. When I looked right before I made this video, Michigan is currently a 2-point favorite in this game. I thought as kickoff approached, or as today got closer, maybe that would flip and the money would start to go on to Alabama and the line would reverse. So far, it looks like it's holding steady with Michigan being about a 1 or a 2-point favorite, depending on where you look or when you look. I think this game comes down to quarterback play. Not because I think these are two elite, high-level, future Heisman-winning quarterbacks or anything like that. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think these are two pretty average quarterbacks. Mildew obviously can do a lot of running around with his legs, and he's a hell of an athlete. And if he gets loose, Michigan's got a great defense, but if he gets loose, he can outrun anybody on that defense, and it could be obviously bad for Michigan. I think Nico's going to have a hard time throwing the ball consistently, though, from the pocket against this Michigan defense. I do believe in this Michigan defense. I think they are legit. I don't think it's because they play in the Big Ten like some people say, or they play nobody with no offense. I think Michigan is a defense full of veteran, experienced, NFL-level talent players. Michigan is the way more experienced team in this game. If you look at returning starters, they've got playoff experience. The majority of the players on Alabama's team do not, as Alabama missed the playoffs last year. And so the experience advantage, I do think, is with Michigan. When I say I think this game comes down to the quarterbacks, because I'm not big on McCarthy either. His ability to sit in the pocket and throw the ball has not impressed me either. You look at the last 3 or 4 games for Michigan, he's averaging like 130 yards a game. They've got a great running game, Michigan does, but lines of scrimmage, both teams, great lines of scrimmage. I think this is going to be a line of scrimmage game, and which quarterback doesn't make the critical mistake? Go back to last year's Michigan-TCU game in the national title game. Michigan wins that game easily, except for the fact that McCarthy threw not 1 but 2 pick sixes. He throws 2 interceptions today. Michigan can't overcome that against Bama. They couldn't even overcome it against TCU. And I feel like it's the same thing for Alabama. If Joe Milton gets antsy in the pocket, he's had turnover issues at times this season. He's thrown multiple interceptions into his own end zone when they're down there in scoring territory. I feel like if Bama makes those mistakes, they can't overcome that. To me, it comes down to which quarterback makes the critical mistake to kind of cost their team the game. I've leaned Bama the entire time. I'm sticking with that. I think Bama wins a really, really close, low-scoring, hard-fought game in the Rose Bowl. That's the early playoff game. And then coming up tonight, Texas and Washington. Again, I've been leaning Texas the entire time. Nothing has changed my mind. I'm sticking with Texas. They're about a 4.5, 5-point favorite in this game. This is kind of the opposite. This is going to be a quarterback duel worth watching. These two quarterbacks can sling the ball around. There's NFL wide receivers all over the field. And both secondaries have been suspect at times this season. So I think both the quarterbacks in this game are going to have great games. To me, this game is going to come down to which defense can make the critical stop at the critical moment in the game. And that doesn't necessarily mean the end of the game or even the end of the first half. But, momentum is so important in sports and football and college football in particular. If momentum starts to build for one team, can the other team's defense come out and sort of make a game-changing play to swing that around? That's kind of what I'm looking for in this game. I'm going to stick with Texas again to win a close game, maybe a touchdown. So to recap, I like Texas and Bama in the playoff games, and I like LSU and Tennessee in the earlier bowl games. I'm going to be live streaming pretty much all day today. 1 o'clock, I'm going to go live for the Tennessee and Iowa game right here on this channel on YouTube. For the Rose Bowl, Alabama and Michigan, which comes on, I think, at 4:45 or 5 o'clock, something like that. That will be the Patreon stream today. So there'll be a link in the description of this video for my Patreon page if y'all want to go check it out. But we'll be live streaming Alabama versus Michigan on the Patreon page at 5 o'clock. And then I'll be back right here on YouTube tonight at 8:45 or 9 for the Sugar Bowl, Texas and Washington. So come hang out. We'll have a great time watching these games. Again, Happy New Year. Have a good morning.